It's Hashem. The shir should be La'ilu Nishmas Baruch Azriel ben Bitzala Yaakov for the elevation of his neshama, one of the uncles of one of the dear Chevra here, who is continuing his journey in Chaim, and his neshama should have an aliyah, and who was involved in great mitzvahs through his life and helped build up Torah in Florida and build up Chabad, and he should be remembered for a great blessing. So we're on page 189. We're going to begin the process of going into dreams and sleep, and we've been talking about the soul, and this is all going to lead us to understand where the prophetic experience lies and how to make sure that the information we're receiving is from good and reliable sources as opposed to unreliable sources. And we're going to speak about Shadim, which would be an example of unreliable source, fake news, obviously. And we'll have to get into that. So in 189, the highest wisdom, Hashem decreed it appropriate to divide the day into two parts. One for activity and the other for rest. Meaning that's simple. We see that there's two parts of the day. The daily cycle is thus divided into day and night, day being the time of activity and night the time of rest. Now it's fascinating that after the Industrial Revolution, we really lost the idea of there being day and night. Because as soon as you can run a factory 24/7 with bright fluorescent lights, the idea of a natural rest time and the idea of circadian rhythms in the human being became something of a second thought for many people, and not simple, that we lost the natural flow of daytime and nighttime. And we're going to see that there's purposes of why Hashem divided the day suchly. God also gave living creatures a nature causing them to sleep, so that both they and their spirits should rest from their normal activity. At that time, their strength is renewed both physically and spiritually, and they awake in the morning, ready again for their daily tasks. No matter how powerful a person is, no matter how great they are, you could be Goliath. You could be the head of some country. At a certain point, you stay up 24 hours, 36 hours, dominating the world. Genghis Khan, Napoleon, 48 hours. 56 hours. Napoleon. Genghis. What's going on? Why are you so not powerful right now? Oh, you think you're a big man in town? Per force. It's necessary that even the most powerful of people, no man can fight sleep. No man can fight it forever. There will be a time that will necessitate that a person falls asleep. There's many Kabbalistic reasons for that. One of the simple ones is, more something in Musar that's discussed, is that if somebody thinks they're such a big shot, they think they're so powerful, at a certain point, you have to acknowledge that you just can't go on. You have to acknowledge that I need to recharge. There's something bigger than me. That's a very humbling thing. It's a very humbling thing. Now, we don't see sleep only as something that I just go to recharge and then I'm back. Because if that was the case, why wouldn't God make sleep like a second? Isn't it fascinating that God made sleep a significant part of a person's life? By significant, I mean, I'm not going to give a percentage. Between, tzaddikim will sleep a few hours a night. Let's call it an eighth, from 16% to, 33% of one's life. That's a major difference. And even if you go down to 15%, let's say, if a person's entire life is sleeping, That's a lot of time. Let's go with a regular number, 25% of your life. Hashem set up a world where 25% of your life is just sleep. That's it. That's something that has to be just stopped and thought about. So in the good books, they talk about how that 25% is not only that it helps me to have the good 75%, but the 25% itself, you're meant to do stuff. There's things going on in the 25% that you're supposed to tap in to certain spiritual energies. That 25% is supposed to be not a time off, but a time on. That's right. That if you prepare yourself appropriately, that you could catapult yourself in the dream time to achieve many great things. We're going to speak a little bit about that, Mirza Hashem, in the next day. When man sleeps, his faculties rest. His senses are quiet and his mind is relaxed and hushed. The only thing that continues to function is imagination. And this conceives and envisions various images. Some of these images arrive from the individual's experience while awake. Very important. First level of sleep may be no more than just the sum total of stuff that you looked on your Instagram feed the entire day. And therefore, you're seeing these interesting images. I think one time somebody did some research into this from the Chevra here, and they said that it was thousands of images. A regular person who plays with a phone witnesses a day. Thousands. I think that was one of the low numbers we got. Thousands of images. And, these images, some of them are not so, well filtered. No, Rebbe, I choose what I look at. Until you don't, because you think you're choosing. They're choosing for you. You can't beat the algorithm. It's too powerful. It's too powerful. It's too powerful. Everybody knows that. It's too powerful. You can't beat that. Do you know how much money they put into these algorithms? You can't win. No, I'm in control of my phone. Part of that is the algorithm that even makes you think that you're in control. They put money in that also. So, for many, especially if they're exposed to just a daytime experience of just many, many images, their dream time is just... Now, it's interesting because in the dream time, certain conscious thought, as we just said, certain conscious sense goes away, and now you're just left with the imaginative qualities that have an imprint from the things that you watched during the day, and then you could see the images kind of together, intermingling together. But for many, the sum total of that, or things from previous days, and they're seeing basically just a regurgitation, maybe in different format, of the images that you watched during the day. This is an important one. Others may be the result of substances that rise to the brain from food or from the body itself. In other words, many people's dreams can be the output of undigested food and the gaseous, so is that gaseous? The gaseous output from indigestion, which are now going up to the brain and making a concoction of kind of weird stuff going on, that a person essentially is now experiencing the fumes of undigested. Everybody knows, like when you have indigestion, it's just like, oh. You go to sleep with indigestion, like, oh. You sort of have like a weird situation going on. Person eats too much candy before bed, a big shawarma lafa with all the sauces right before bed.
I love a Malka pizza.
Yeah, it's just like, oh. Where you sort of like pass out, okay? I don't want to be too, but Torah hiv a little more anu tzarich. It's time we have to talk about it. There could be a situation, a person walks into the room of sleeping people, and it could be fragrant. Because just all the gases of all the situation, as everything is just like indigestion off-gassing, and that is then giving input into the imagination, and a person can have just weird stuff going on. That, says the Ramchal, such are the stimuli for normal dreams which are experienced by everyone. This is, for many people, the sum total of their dream state. A combination of weird gas, food, bad food combinations, right before bed, undigested food, that I ate too much candy before bed and then had bad dreams, and all of the images you saw during the day, all together, and that makes for a bit of an interesting dream experience. Fine. But now let's go deeper into the story. Now, by the way, based on that, you could appreciate that if you want to purify your dreams, then you should be aware of the things that you see during the day and the food combinations that you have before you go to bed. I think one of the most famous things, I like to speak to people that are older. I find that when the Torah says that you stand up for an old person, even if they don't have any Torah, it's because people that are older have seen life, and you learn certain things along the way. I think one of the most famous things that I hear from older people, when I ask them about, so tell me about your life, tell me about your daily habits. What got you to this day? So it started with my Zayda, a blessed memory. We would go to visit him in Phoenix, and then he went to Florida. He would snowbird down there. So everybody knew that dinner, early bird special. When did the early bird special start? 4:30. I was like, dinner at 4:30? Zaidi, 4:30. I'm just waking up by then. It's dinner time, and we got to go for dinner. Early bird special. And then, 4 hours before bed, he would not touch a single morsel of food. It's almost a universal. People that are older generally understand that if you eat too close to bed, you don't feel good. When people are young, they feel like they're just like some big cauldron. They can just put anything into this thing and power it through. And then your body gets a bit older and you realize things work not as well when they go into the body before bed. So one of the things to be aware of is maybe I shouldn't be eating so close to bedtime because I want to make sure that I'm digested, my body is at rest, and then my dream experience, a quarter of my life could be used a little bit more productively than just being this je ne sais quoi, off-gassing, I don't know. So let's now go into what happens if we can get some of that under control, and we want to now go into a holier dream state. God also decreed that the bond between the body and the divine soul should be somewhat loosened while the man sleeps. Very important. That we mentioned before, that the Ramchal taught us that we have 5 levels of our soul. We have nefesh, ruach, neshama, chai, yechida, neran, chai. 5 levels of our soul. While we sleep, the lower parts, the most low parts stays with us, but all the higher parts of our soul start to dislodge and go up. So the nefesh, we explained in detail, is connected to the animal soul, which is connected to the blood in my body. The ruach, which is connected to my heart and my free will and my passions. My neshama, which is in my mind, which knows right from wrong. My chaya, which is my life force, which is above me. My yechida, which is the one essence that connects me to everything, which is essentially connected to all life in its essence. So those start going up, meaning only my nefesh stays in my body, because my nefesh is connected to my animal soul, which is responsible for the animation of my animal body, which is responsible. That's why, as my higher parts are going up, and I only have my nefesh, even my nefesh calms down. That's why when a person goes to bed, their pulse slows down, everything, their heart rate, everything begins to relax. Their breathing slows down. The higher parts are going up. I only have the bare minimum that literally is keeping me alive. But the rest of me is going up. Because the rest of me is going up, the rest of me, which is the real me, is not connected to the world of the five senses anymore. So now, really, the me, my higher self, is able to go and experience things up there. Is able to go do great things. Is able to see the world in a way that's not so confined by five senses. Sometimes people experience similar things like this on psychedelics, as they describe that I felt like I wasn't of my five senses anymore, so I could be on the other side of the world, I could see things. That which keeps us constrained here is that we live so much through our five senses. Give me a steak, or a green smoothie, or I gotta hit the gym, or I gotta play some Candy Crush or something. So we're so wrapped up in the five senses. So we have a hard time seeing much higher level things. But sleep time, all of a sudden, 1/4 of my life, Hashem gives you a gift where He says, if you can go into sleep properly, you're not fettered by the five senses anymore, and you can really experience things in a wondrously clear way. But that's only if you can get past the first part, which is the images you saw during the day, which really prevent the higher parts from going up, because their imagination is pulled back down, or all this off-gassing stuff, which just messes up the mind and the imagination in the dream time. So the portions of the soul from the ruach and above then rise and sever themselves from the body. Only one portion, the nephesh, remains with the lower animal soul. The freed portions of the soul, this is the money, the freed portions of the soul can then move about in the spiritual realm wherever they are allowed. Meaning, there's a lot going on up there. There's a lot of yeshivas up there. It says the Arizal, when he would go to bed on Shabbos, he would go, and he describes that sometimes he would go to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's yeshiva, sometimes to Rabbi Meir's yeshiva, sometime to Moshe Rabbeinu's yeshiva, sometime to God's yeshiva. Some people say, why wouldn't he always go to God? Because Hashem gave the Torah to Am Yisrael at Har Sinai, and therefore there's a special koyach in learning the Torah of Am Yisrael that he wanted to gain access to. But you have to be let into those places. You need to know the codes. You have to be fitting to go to those places. Once a person arrives at certain places, you think down here is complex, up there is way more complex. They can interact and associate with spiritual beings as the angels. Once you get up there, you can start to meet different types of Chevra. The angelic Chevra. You can meet different, there's a lot going on up there. Yeah.
Are you familiar with lucid dreaming?
Yeah.
If one's lucid dreaming, one could imagine there's a yeshiva, and then boom, there's going to be a yeshiva there. So, would you say that lucid dreaming is a product of this, about getting access to these special places?
For sure.
Thinking that it's in your control, or potentially vice versa? Who's to say that these yeshiva that he witnessed were not just him lucid dreaming and just a product of his own mind?
So here's where it gets important, because the things that are going on up there, you have to know how to navigate them. Once you get up there, there are forces of deception. That's where we're getting into demons. When a person goes up there, this is one of the things that also concerns me with psychedelics, for some people's journeys, is all of a sudden they're working their 9 to 5 JP Morgan job, and next thing they do, they have some psychedelic journey, and they see things, and they're like, they go back the next day to JP Morgan, they're like, and the guys are like, did you submit the proposal? And he's like, I just saw things, dude. Like, proposal? Like, just give me a day or two. Like, it can be hard to reintegrate because they saw many things. The problem is they think they saw everything. They definitely saw a lot more than their cubicle and their box and their little box on wheels that they drove to their box that had a lot of boxes inside of it, and the food that they ate from a box and little thing that was beeping from the box they hid in the morning. They see a lot more than just boxy reality.
Why is reality so boxy?
It's part of the
code. Everything's a box.
It's true.
It's a secret.
There was a book that I read back in the day that was very, very influential, that really like opened up my mind. It was written by a Native American, and it was called, I think, The Last Real American. You can look it up, and he has a whole piece on there about boxes. That he was describing when he was like living on a reserve, and then he saw basically all the Westerners started, coming in, and he was sort of watching the world around him change. And he made this comment that all these Westerners are into their boxes. That they sleep on a box, and then they hit this beeping box, and they go downstairs, and they got this box that's very cold, and they open up the cold box, got tiny little boxes inside of it. They pour this food out of a box, they get on their box on wheels, and they go to this giant box that's filled, you never guess, with boxes. They take a box that goes up here, then they sit in this box that's made just for them. And you know what they do all day? They type on a box. And he was like, it was fascinating because the world that he came from, everything was round. The natural world, everything is round.
Yeah, inventor of the toilet couldn't figure it out, and then he said, everything's a box, you can't think in boxes, and now it's curved. That's the way it works.
So, if a guy is used to living in a box, and then he sees things that are outside the box, so the danger is he thinks that I just saw it all. He doesn't realize that up there's tricksters. There's a lot of deception up there. If down here it's hard to see, like, who's a white hat, who's a black hat. That's a political term. Who are the real good guys? It's not always pasha to know. Up there, who are the white angels, who are the black angels? Lavan was called Lavan, he was all white. But he was the most rotten. Those are the worst ones, that they make themselves look like they're white. Those are the worst ones. So how do you navigate what's going on up there? So when we talk about going up, we're going to see that there's certain qualification for you to know how to navigate once you get up there. And lucid dreaming is a big part of this. But even within your lucid dreaming, is your lucid dreaming still a product of stuff from this world? Or are you really graduating and preparing yourself to navigate what's called oilamos, the heichalos, the different chambers, the rooms within rooms within rooms, the palaces within palaces that are going on? And the Jewish people were given a technology how to do this. It's really called Kabbalah, that discusses how to go through the dream time. But at least to give you one part of the technology is to ensure every night, besides not eating a shawarma lafa with all the sauces before bed, besides that, or spicy things before bed, or egg things, or dairy things, or garlicky things, that has its own reason why not, shoivim reasons, a person should ensure to say the bedtime Shema.
3 or 1?
3. 3 has how many words in it? 248, corresponding to the 248 limbs of the human being. Because when you're catapulting into SpaceX and going out of the universe, you want to make sure that you're protecting your 248. You want to make sure that you're protecting when you meet different players up there, that you can tell the difference between an angel and a demon. How we're going to do that, we'll learn a little bit more together. We're going to have to talk about demons, b'siyata d'shmaya, and how to avoid them at all costs, and how to ensure that our dreams are healthy, holy experiences. We should be zeicha mamish to holy dreams. And then once again, we're going to see hayinu kacholmim, that Mashiach's going to come, and we're all going to wake up like we were in a dream. And we should see Mamish Mashiach Tzidkeinu B'mhirav Yameinu. Amen.
Amen.
All the best, my friends.